Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to our sixth webinar in our series of Mastering Aero. Today is a little different. We are doing a little more freeform. Today with us, we have Mark Cruz, who is our head of development and a Aero workflow partner. Victoria Cameron, who is another Aero workflow partner. And we have a special guest here today, Sharon Means, who is a pro Aero user from Redmond Accounting. So everybody is going to be sharing their favorite Aero tricks, tips, and hacks. And I'm Sarah Syverson, by the way. I'm sure most of you have spoken with me before. So let's start off. Mark, do you want to start off sharing some of your favorite Aero shortcuts and tricks?
Yes, sure. I actually am also a partner in another accounting firm as well, just like Laura and Victoria. And so I have to work in two different Aero accounts. So I do have two Aero accounts going on kind of all the time at different Chrome users. But my favorite tip is how I use templates. I don't know, Sarah, how long ago was it? A month, 2 months ago, where we added a new work option, work menu, which was My Templates. And My Templates is simply the same screen as Manage Templates, but it just happens to be automatically filtered for the logged in user.
Right.
So what I have done is I have a couple of clients that put a demand on my time for instantaneous feedback. They IM me, and quite frankly, they have mission critical operations. So we have to respond very quickly to make sure that they're up and running, or it could be very expensive. So we charge them by the minute in La Cruz bookkeeping for that work. What I have done is I have templates set up for that particular client ready for billing. So Sarah, you can show like an example template.
Like this one right here, I have it already set up with a type of consulting. We'll just look at it.
Yep, you open it up and look at it.
Yeah.
And the difference was that it would be assigned to me.
Okay.
And so I have it marked as billable. I have the type mapped to the type of work that we're going to be doing for them. Typically, I don't have a project tied to this kind of thing, and it's also tied to a specific contact. And I'll say like phone call, quick to do. So I have a handful of these different things. So what I'm able to do is, if you'll save that, you're logged in as Robert, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then we just simply go to My Templates, and then I just come in here, and then I have several of them. One might be like a interruption phone call. Another one could be, they IM'd me and asked me to do things like troubleshoot a user. Why can't a user log in? That kind of stuff. So I just simply click Start Aero. They call, I click Start Aero. It's already, my time notes are there. I have access to their vault, everything. So I can add additional comments and notes. And then when they're done, then I just stop the timer and I'm done. So that was basically for me a one-click operation to do work for that particular client.
So this is taking the unscheduled, the ability to start a task on the fly, and really making it specific so that it's really fast. Because of course you can't always do this kind of thing with the start task, but you do need to fill in the information. But Mark has got it set up. So for a couple of clients, his heavy user clients, as he calls them, he can just really one click start it. So.
Right. Well, they're kind of like mission critical, and I'm actually looking at My Templates, and I can see that I have 3 clients that are set up to do that kind of thing.
Yeah. Cool. Great. Okay. So that's one really nice save and complete, and then that's 1 minute, and you can bill them for a minute, right?
Mm-hmm. So it's done. We built, and that's how I bill by the minute. We don't even, and I'll even go so far as to say that I look at the time when I save it, but that's it. For 6 months now, at least 6 months, when it comes to, and we bill them on a monthly basis. So I just walk right up to QuickBooks and just press the put it in from the drawer and press go invoice. Then that's
Yeah.
it. That's all it took for me to invoice that client.
Right. You're
Um,
not rounding. You're gonna, if it was 23 minutes, you're billing for 23 minutes. So you
right.
don't mess with it at all.
And so why don't I take the time to show one other thing that I will do in the course of a month
Yep.
For a client. I'll go to manage time, and I will go by company this month.
Well, it's April, so let's do last month. There's a,
Yep.
it's April
Yep. No,
1st.
I mean, during the month, this is the kind of
Yep.
thing. What
Okay.
I'll do is I'll just simply go in and we have a mixture of clients. Some are billed by the minute like this,
Uh-huh.
and we have others that are fixed price or value price or whatever you want to call it. But I'm concerned that, I'm keeping track of how much we might be billing them on a monthly basis. So I come right here and I can look at those clients. They don't have any agreement to how much they spend with us in a month. So I use this to judge cash flow a little bit. So I can
you can
see.
let them know ahead of time if it's going to be a really out of usual month. That's nice. So
Right.
they don't like surprises. Nobody likes surprises like that.
They don't like surprises, and you know what? The truth is, if they have a few projects that we've talked about going on, and I look down and I see that the billings might not be the same this month as they've been in the last couple of months, I might even actually reach out to them and say, hey, your billings are going to be a little bit lower this month. Do you want to tackle this project? Because they've usually budgeted for a specific amount.
Okay, so we have a lot. I want to move along. Victoria, you have anything you want to share with us?
Yeah, maybe we can just talk about using that timer and how to start it, stop it, why you'd want to be doing that, and possibly talk a little bit about using multiple timers, since that has come up with other Aero users. They want to be able to use multiple timers.
Sure. All right, well, let's start with the first case of using a timer is for pre-scheduled and assigned work. So we've got our task for Blackwater Racing today, paying bills, and we're merrily walking along, checking tasks off, and our timer's running, tracking our time. The phone rings. And so what we want to do in this case is probably pause our timer. We're going to come right back to this. So quickly go to Quick Links and start a task or an appointment, whatever you want to call a phone call. You can fill out a couple of quick fields. This is for Cherries Express. And when I go ahead
or use a template like Mark did.
Or use a template like Mark did, whichever way you want to do it. If it's the person that calls 7 times a day, you probably would have a template set up for them. And here you can make your notes. So you've got this tab open with a timer that's paused, and this tab open with the timer that is running. When you're finished with this one, you can either save and complete. Whoops, I meant to not press that. You could save and complete, or you can save and defer that if you had follow on to that phone call. And then go back to the timer that you had paused, restart the timer, and continue working. It is perfectly possible to have 2 timers running at the same time.
I was going to say, I don't think I've ever paused it, because when you answer the phone, you don't think.
Right.
So then you go back and there's a bunch of timers already started.
Yeah, but then what do? Right? You just edit the time.
Yep.
And that's really easy. So you can see how much time was on this timer for the incoming phone call.
And then you subtract the other one.
And then you subtract it. So that's pretty easy. I have had the question about, can I have several timers running at the same time? And yes, absolutely. It'll track time for multiple clients. And the answer was, okay, good. So.
Well, I've done that. I've worked on one client while I'm on hold with IRS for another client.
Absolutely.
Okay. Nice.
I feel like that's legitimate double billing.
Go ahead, go for it. Anytime. Yeah.
I'm
not going to say no. Wait, none of your clients are on this, right, Victoria?
Right.
And so starting a timer, multiple timers, let's just kind of go over, and I know we've gone over this before. We probably don't need to. There's a lot of options on these timers.
Mm-hmm.
But we've gone over that in a previous webinar. I don't think really need to do that. So one thing that I get questions from customers all the time is, how can I make notes about my customers? We've given you a lot of options. There are a lot of different ways to do that. In managed companies, you can go ahead and when you're in a client, there's actually a field to add notes. If you have notes about that client, then it would show up in this section here. There would be a section of notes. Whatever sort of general notes that you want to have, you can use this for, what kind of tax entity they are, when does their fiscal year end, maybe a list of all the different apps that they use, that you use on behalf of them. You can put kind of notes there that are permanent notes, I guess is the right word, that's that kind of information. You can also use the vault to add notes. The benefit of putting notes in the vault is that then they're searchable. So you can filter, if you have 100 entries in the vault, you can filter and find a particular vault entry easily. So if you wanted to quickly filter for something that was, maybe tax entity or just entity, then you could bring that up. So you can do it that way, using the vault to add a note. The other thing about the vault is that it's a way to add secure, not just usernames and passwords, checking account information, whatever else there is, but you can put in notes, and it can be a general note with a low security level, or it could be sensitive information that you want to store in a central location, but you really only want, maybe your owners and your managers to have access to that information. So you can give that note a higher security level. This company info is visible to anyone that's working on that client, but you can control who sees the notes in the vault. Another way to add a note about a client is to actually create an arrow. And if you use quick links, add a task, you can make the status completed. You can say who's the one that's creating the note, what type is it, maybe just overhead, who the client is, a subject, so then the note is searchable. It has a date attached to it, so that gives sort of a reference point to this note, and maybe it's just a general note about the client that you want in their Aero record, and you can stick it there. So those are 3 different ways to create notes for your client.
Can you also just set up like a procedure? Because that's usually what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just do it in procedure.
So what would you would just create a procedure that is like all the central information about the client?
Yep.
So
who the approvers are, what banks they bank at, the employee names, when we run payroll.
Okay.
Pretty much anything onboarding wise, we kind of put in here, and then we update as we go along, and then we also attach those to the arrows that we have for the client so that people can come in here and check.
Right. So then any task that you attach this to, the person doing the task would have access to this information.
Yep.
Okay.
Great. 4th way. 4 different ways.
Yeah.
4 different ways. Yeah. Super. And then you can put in links in here. You can put images in here.
Yeah. Yeah,
So.
we can link it right to QBO, a specific report that we might want to run, or all kinds of different things that we can get right from there.
Okay, great. Okay. All right, Victoria, it's your turn.
Okay. Well, let's talk about some ways to use your browser, specifically Chrome, because that's our browser of choice, to sort of help you manage Aero. My first favorite Chrome tip is if you right-click at the top of the tab, you can choose Pin Tab. All right, and that just collapses it down so it takes up less room.
OMG.
There we go. Even Sarah learned something.
Okay.
All right, so that's my first tip. So what I do is I have a Chrome and a Chrome person. So I pin the tabs for my Gmail, for my Google Calendar, for my Google Drive, and for Aero. And then I go into settings.
Okay. I'm loving this. Okay.
All right.
So you're going to go into settings.
All right. And now I choose on startup, open a specific set of pages.
Appearance on startup. Okay.
Okay. And so whenever I open my Chrome user, then and now in this case, it's set, and then click the box that says use current pages.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then I can X these out.
Yeah, X those two that we don't want in there now. Okay.
Nice.
All right. And so that will, and then even more specifically, you were on Manage Templates, but I have it open to my Aero list. So it specifically opens not only Aero, but my Aero list as long as I'm logged in. And so if I were to close this Chrome, if I were to X out of this Chrome window and then open that user back up, it will open up that set of tabs.
That is a great time. So excited. I did not know that.
Yeah. All right. So now the next Chrome tip is, let's go to that tab that we've pinned. Okay. And let's go ahead and change it to my Aero list by clicking on the Aero icon.
That's another tip.
That's a tip. I was going to say.
Just sneaking that in, but anytime you click the Aero icon, it's going to bring you to your Aero list.
So easy.
Yeah. Now I'll go click that star at the very end of my browser bar. And I want to add just, and you can name it whatever you want. It's just my Aero list or just Aero. And I want to add that to my bookmarks bar, so it's really fast to get to it. And now if you just click done, Sarah, and now go open another blank tab so we can expose the bookmarks bar. And you can see my list is just sitting there. Now Sarah's got some already all set up.
Right.
But now all she has to do is click on my list if she didn't have it open. But this gets even more powerful. So let's go back to Aero for a second. And now let's go to Manage Aeros. And maybe you want to see Aeros open and you want to just do open and do this week.
Okay.
All right. Right. So you want to, this is a report you like to look at all the time. Now you can actually favorite that one. And you see Sarah's already actually favorited this one because the star is yellow. So if she were to look at a new tab, she would be able to pop right into this report straight from her Chrome bar.
Yep.
Which is really helpful.
So I'm going to interrupt you for a second to go further with this making bookmarks. What I actually have on my real user, not my Robert user, what I actually have is in my bookmarks, I've created a folder called Aero Favorites. And that's in my bookmarks bar. And so I actually have all of these Aero bookmarks that I've made in that Aero Favorites folder. Because my bookmark bar, I have a lot of, we all do, right? You end up with a lot of things bookmarked. And I want to make sure that I can always find all of my Aero bookmarks. So I just click on that and then choose the Aero favorite that I want. And it'll take me straight to that. So I can do that anytime within Aero. And so I could go to the work by client right there. That's the report I love. So I can go and see that anytime, from anywhere in Aero.
So I think that the other thing is maybe we just talk about duplicating tabs, which is another really quick thing to do in Aero. And then just kind of highlight the using that right click to open a tab in a new window, just in terms of manipulating in Chrome. Those are a couple that I find people who maybe even have been using Chrome for a while don't know how to do.
Right. And it's right click or either command or control click, depending upon whether you use a Macintosh or a Windows computer. But it's simply click on the menu option, say I wanted to go add a note about this client really quickly. So I'm going to choose Manage Companies and open link in new tab. And then I can go and do whatever I want while this timer is still running. I'm still working on that client.
Yeah, and I actually use, here's another favorite that I put up there. We have, obviously, we use Aero at CCL, and we have a lot of internal passwords and links to different things that we all share, and of course they're in the vault. So what I've done is actually set up a favorites page for Cloud Consultancy. And that lets me pop into the Cloud Consultancy vault really quickly and get whatever it is that I need instead of having to maneuver to there from someplace else. So,
and that I know that most of our clients end up having the most vault entries in their own company's vaults, because that's where, you have a lot of passwords and stuff that you use for your firm. Mark, feel free to jump in here anytime.
I wanted to add something to your discussion on the vault.
Okay.
So if you can open up, just go to open up a vault.
Okay.
You can do this with projects. We've found with like tax returns, we have a whole lot of projects, hundreds of projects we have in tax returns. And to help further filter things, a little subtlety works. So if you pick a character and you use that character in the name, then such as like a star before a name or 2 stars or things like this, then what you're able to do is use your contains filter to quickly drill down. So you get another way to categorize something.
Right.
So if it were bank accounts, and that's something, and this has been, as you just commented, I think we have on the order of 150 entries in company vault. So some of it's managing websites. So this is what we've done. This is an additional thing. Or if you were talking about those notes, even though there's definitely a type for notes, but that's another little tip that I have learned there.
So you can filter for notes, and then you can further filter for something else. But I like that tip of adding the character, Mark. That's really cool. So any sort of bank account information, we could just put a little $sign and then quickly filter for something that contains the $sign. That's neat.
And you can, and it's possible to also append or put a number before, and you're tricking the system to, when you sort, you can sort and the numbers will show up first.
Right.
Either they show up first or last. That just means you've clicked twice. What you do is you get the effect of you are putting some sort criteria in. So those are two things.
So if you have a note that you always want to show up first, you could put the number 1 in front of it and it'll always be at the top of the vault, you're saying.
If you sort.
If you sort.
And then let me add one other comment where it says secured value. It's also, you don't just have to put one password in there. So if you have the customer's bank account number and the routing number, you could put them both in the secured value. Nothing says you have to put them. I've seen people do that. They only will put, so like in Union Bank bank checking right there, we've got the routing number and the account number. There's nothing stopping you from putting them both in the secured value.
So I want to move along. There's a couple of things I wanted to mention related to getting your Aero account set up when you're first setting up your Aero account. A couple of hacks that make it easier, faster. One is using master Aeros to set things up. So when you're first setting up your Aero account and you already have your clients' work, not very many people who have a brand new accounting firm are starting with Aero. So you've already got ongoing client work, and the challenge is, of course, to continue to do the work while you're setting up Aero. And so if you have recurring client work like reconciling bank accounts, that's something that is going to be done on the same recurrence interval across all your clients. And so what you can actually do is set up your first master Aero, maybe set it up from a template. You've got your steps in here, and you set up the occurrence options for this master Aero. So we're going to be doing it monthly. It's going to be there on the first of every month. We've got 3 days to do it. So this is for Blackwater Racing. And this one's all set up. Now that I've got the one set up, what I can do is come here and clone this master Aero. It's going to open it up in a new window. It'll clone all the fields exactly the way they were set up for the Blackwater Racing one. I can delete the word clone, change it to be for A1 printing. Maybe somebody else is going to do it. Maybe this one is for Lucy. Change any of the thing that needs to be changed. But when you go to the occurrence options, the same options are already selected. So all you need to do is click Insert Occurrences, and then this one is set up. Save and close. Close this tab. Keep track of the tabs that open and close. That's one of the SaaS software problems. And then I can clone it again and set it up for the next client. So that you can see if you have things like reconciling bank accounts, even payroll, if you have multiple clients who have the same payroll intervals, it speeds it a great deal to set up multiple clients. You can see how fast it was to set up those couple of master arrows for 2 or 3 clients, and then you can go on and set up whatever it is for the next thing. So that's a hack.
That's probably my biggest hack. And when I started moving my company over to the new Aero, that's how I set it up. Laura spent a whole weekend getting everything perfect before she started using Aero. I didn't do that. I could get away with it. Laura couldn't get away with that because she has multiple employees, obviously, and so she had to kind of be a little bit.
It wasn't so perfect. But okay.
The truth comes out. I mean, and I guess that's the biggest takeaway is that there's never going to be a perfect time to stop, do it. You just have to kind of jump in, and doing those, setting up those templates as you go really helps you. And it's also great if you're starting to think about now taking on another employee or taking on another person. This is forcing you to document what you're doing as you're doing it. So it really helps you get it sorted.
So just go ahead, start a task. You can say what it is. I'm doing payroll, whatever it is, and you have your type set up, the client you're going to do it for. Go ahead and start it. So now you're tracking the time for the payroll task that you're doing, and use this lovely SaaS software to have another tab open. So you can ignore this tab, go over here, create a new template, and actually, that's all subject payroll. As you're doing it, add the steps. Each step that you do, if you think it's something that should be checked off, you create the step, and so you're doing a task and creating a template at the same time.
And you add one more step to that. Well, not a step, but go back up to your menu and go to Setup, and click on Procedure Type or Procedures. Where are procedures? I don't even know where to manage procedures.
Yeah. So you can create a procedure at the same time.
Yep, exactly. And then link it to that task.
Yeah. Right. So then when you're done, you have a template, you've done a task, and you have a procedure.
Yep.
And I can add from our own experience is we did this, and then what we would do is open that template up again while we did it the second time, the second go round. We didn't get the steps right. So even though we had the steps and you just did what you did, you had that new arrow from a template. We then opened the template back up so we could change the steps as we were going. And we had to do the task like 3 times. So 3 occurrences before we perfected it.
Now that makes a lot of sense, Mark. So you're saying that really test that template before you create 40 master arrows from that template. Yeah, because once you create a master arrow from a template, it's divorced. So if you update the template, then you still have to go and update those 40 master arrows. So that makes sense. And even to have somebody else do the task the second time, right, Sharon? Because you might have some input.
Absolutely. Yep. We actually have hired someone new in the last couple of months, and so she's been going through all of our arrows, and lots of things have changed and need to update.
That you didn't even realize have changed, and you kind of knew that, so you were just skipping over it.
You just gloss over it. Yep.
Yeah. Victoria, you have one more thing. Do you want me to switch over to you and sort of do your little demo?
Okay. What we're all looking at is my iPhone, basically. And
iPhone plus plus.
What?
I saw iPhone plus plus. It's huge.
Yeah, it's enormous. Yeah. And what I've done is in Safari, I have opened the Quick Note in Safari. I've logged into Aero, opened the Quick Note, and then what I've done is I've said I want to add it to the home screen, which is this one right here, right? And I'm actually going to not do that because I already have it there. And it just adds a little icon for Aero's Quick Note right to my home screen. So anytime I want to, I can just pop in to create a note. And then this is even a better thing. It's already assigned to me, okay? And then this is the part I love. If I'm taking a walk, new note. I can just, and stuff strikes me, I have to remember to do this when I get back to the office. I can just dictate straight into here. And Mark's the one that initially showed me this. But this is the best thing since sliced bread. For one thing, I'm a hideous typist, right? So now that's going to be on my Aero list when I get back to the office. But yeah, that's all you have to do. And then it's just right there on your phone. It's very fast to open it up, make yourself a quick note, and then it's there. You can also look at your entire Aero list on the iPhone if you want to. You can start a task from it. I've done that to actually do stuff while I'm working on my iPad because I find the interface just a little bit better there. But, you know, absolutely, if you're going to be going out to client offices and doing work, you can absolutely start a task, run the timer, everything straight from within Aero.
Yeah, it's actually easy. The start task screen is pretty easy on your phone. So if you're at a client office, you want to just track the time for the meeting, maybe make some notes, you can easily do that on your phone.
Let me just show you what that looks like. This is what it looks like, a task looks like when you open it on your phone. And because it's all built on responsive design, everything's there. You can see the timer just picked up because I have it running on my computer, it just picked up the time and kept going. And here we are. So I can dictate into the comment screen, which is better than pressing those tiny buttons just by hitting the microphone button. And it's just awesome.
That's a really good point. If you start a timer on one device and then move to another device, the timer, it'll show up on your task list as in progress with XX minutes unrecorded. But if you click that task, it'll open it up with the timer, with the right amount of time on the timer. So you can actually switch devices in the middle of a task. If you forget to, you can always do that if you save and defer, but if you forget to close or whatever it is, have to run out the door with your phone, you can do it that way. Thank you everyone for joining us.